Hi, it's Brian Newman with the 101 Roundtable, and today we're featuring Palmer. He's going to be talking about financial wealth that can benefit everybody. So I'm going to turn it over to him right now. So Palmer, if you could take it away, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Brian. I'm going to share my screen and go through a presentation because I often find that information like this is much better when it's more of a visual representation. So I help people figure out how to become wealthy. And like many of you, I grew up knowing there must be financial strategies out there that are kind of reserved for people and companies at the very top of the food chain. It was even more apparent when I started my professional career and I started to receive financial advice. I knew there must be something I was missing, something I'm not aware of, and most importantly, something that I'm not learning from the professionals I rely on. And then one day I discovered it. And now I provide this strategy. I've discovered a secret strategy that historically has been reserved for the select few at the top. So, over the next 20 minutes, I will be revealing a unique, hidden in plain sight financial strategy that can change the course of your life, your family's life, or even your business's life. I'm going to share how anyone can create double-digit returns that are safe and conservative that will last for the rest of your life, just like the ultra wealthy have done for decades, and that you can too. The information you are about to learn is intended for individuals, business owners, and business advisors, such as health professionals, HR reps, business planners, etc. So I'm going to do that by educating you about the power of a financial strategy that I call a revenue generating asset. This is holistic planning at its best. One strategy that ticks many boxes and can be used in many different ways. Now, I don't have time to go over all of them today. So for today, I'm going to focus on the two primary areas or the two primary ways that I implement this strategy for people. The first part will cover how a business can save time, money, and provide a better benefit for the owners and employees. The second part will cover how an individual can eliminate market risk and turn their taxable liability, such as a 401k or an investment account, into a tax-free cash cow. So with that said, first, I'm going to cover how a revenue generating asset can be used by a business. So this is for ambitious business owners and for also the professionals that advise businesses. I will reveal how a business can increase cash flow, profitability, and reduce expenses. So with this strategy, a business and or the employee can experience double-digit returns for life, acquire tax deductions, which is both safe and accessible whenever it's needed. And businesses often say that the biggest expense in any company is hiring, but even more expensive is retaining an employee. And so this strategy helps employees stay longer with better incentives and saves the company money while doing it. But I would say the biggest benefit to this strategy is there's no net cost to the company. So these benefits can come without pulling from operations to pay for it. The money stays on the books, and any contribution reflects as an asset that grows. So this is not an expense, and it will not impact the bottom line or the ability to receive loans or lines of credit. So the way this strategy works is pretty straightforward. The first thing that happens is the company buys life insurance policies on its owners and its employees. So in this example, I showed this number right here in parentheses of $400,000. Now, in this particular example, this is what the company had in an emergency fund and moved it into this strategy, essentially moving the money from one pocket to the other pocket. After 12 months, that 400,000 has grown to 414,000. Now, this is nothing terribly exciting as far as the growth is concerned, but as you'll see in a minute, this strategy starts to take on a life of its own as the years go on. Now, this $400,000 number is purely for example. It doesn't have to be 400,000, and it certainly isn't the limit. We've helped businesses do this strategy from, as little as 50,000 up to 50 million, if not more. And this $400,000 contribution can either be paid up front, which in this specific example it was, or it can be paid over the course of 24 months, which if you think about it, this could mimic the money would pay into an employee's 401k, for example, if they have multiple employees. Now, after that initial contribution, there is not another penny that is required from the business. So as far as they're concerned, they put $400,000 up and they never have to contribute ever again for the rest of their life. And I'm not going to say it's a downside, but it's one of the realities of life insurance is that the payments must continue year after year, which ties up cash every year. So that's what makes this strategy so unique is there are no more contributions necessary and the strategy continues to grow every year. Now, moving forward, this strategy value is growing inside of the program each year to the tune of about 15% each year. Now, it's important to note that at any given year, this strategy value is accessible anytime in the event of an emergency. And this strategy really shines when you compare this to a traditional emergency fund, which is usually money sitting in a checking account earning next to nothing versus the growth inside of the strategy. Now, the policy ownership may be transferred to the employees at any time. So in this example, I'm going to show that the owners and employees taking control after 10 years. So everything is, after 10 years, everything is transferred to the individuals. So up until this point, it's been controlled and maintained and owned by the business. But now that control and the ownership is being transferred to the individuals. So here I'm showing income starting in year 10, which is shown here in these numbers in green. And this information taken is 100% tax-free and will never run out for the rest of their lives. Now, for regular employees, not an executive, these numbers look fantastic, right? To get a similar benefit with a 401k would quite frankly be an insane amount of money and would cost both the employer and the employees big time. Now, the amount of annual income continues to grow each year, keeping pace with inflation. After 35 years into this strategy, right? So they set it up today. This is looking 35 years into the future. Collectively, the employees or the owners in this example would collectively take a tax-free income amount of $5.8 million in income. But there's also the death benefit component, and that's what most people equate life insurance with, but it's like the Swiss Army knife of financial tools, where the death benefit would also have an additional $11.4 million. But what if the employee were to leave after 3 years? Well, in that case, the employer decides, because remember, this was based on 10 years of employment. So if the employee were to leave earlier, most likely the employer would keep the contribution, or these numbers in green, and then we'll give the death benefit to the employee, right? There's some employers that keep both, or they can do a percentage. At that point, it's really up to the employer. So to kind of expand on that a little bit more, After 35 years of this strategy being implemented, between the income taken over here on the right or the death benefit over here on the left, has a total benefit of 17.3 million. So let's just say, for sake of conversation, the people that have all of the insurance, whether it's the owners, employees, combination of the two, let's say they all were to die in a freak accident on the same day after 35 years. Well, in this example, they would take this amount during their lifetime, and then all of their families would receive a portion of this total death benefit of 11.4 million. But these numbers don't just stop at 35 years. They continue to grow year after year. So if I look 60 years into the future, the total income taken is 94 million plus an additional benefit of 17 million, with a total benefit of 111 million. And all of this was with a one-time contribution of 400,000. Now, let me address the elephant in the room. It's right about now, when I go over these kinds of numbers, showing the benefit over the years, that I hear, Palmer, this looks great. I like it, but this just seems too good to be true, which is a fair assessment. Most people equate these kinds of high returns with high risk, which isn't quite true. They are operating in an old paradigm. Most people don't think holistic, they think fractured. Very few people do things that don't make logical sense, but things that make emotional sense, because people feel good when they're in control. They're afraid, gripped by fear, and the facts don't make it past the fear factor. That's human behavior. So I work with people who have the courage to learn new facts, the courage to be open to a new paradigm that's been hidden in plain sight. That's my audience. This is holistic planning, more than most strategies out there. So as a quick recap of this strategy for businesses, is a business can earn double-digit returns, tax-free, and provide superior employee benefits, acquire tax deductions along the way, and do it all with no net cost to the company. With a starting amount of $400,000 today, over years of growing, this can turn into over $100 million in benefit for the business, the owners, and the employees. So that wraps up this section for the businesses. And next, I'm going to share how individuals can use this same kind of strategy for themselves and create generational wealth. But before I move on, is there anything I can answer or clear up about this strategy or this portion specifically for businesses?
I covered it very well, Palmer.
Hey, thank you very much. I appreciate that. So I just
What's the
finished.
minimum? Oh, sorry, Palmer.
No, go ahead.
What would be the minimum then to get into that fund?
There is no minimum. It's based on your individual financial circumstances. So the way that, the best way to think about it is kind of like a percentage of whatever the business earns per year or whatever you individually earn per year. So it kind of makes sense that if you make, let's say, 100,000 per year, you wouldn't be able to put in $500,000, right? You would only have to be able to put in what you could actually afford. That's really the ultimate limit or the ultimate maximum. I mean, after that, the sky's the limit. I mean, I've done this strategy where somebody puts in millions per year or as little as $1,000 a month and everything in between.
Okay.
So I just covered how businesses can take advantage of this revenue generating asset. And now I will reveal how this strategy works for the individuals. And as I go through this, keep in mind that the only difference between the two is that the business strategy works by the employee starting this strategy for its employees, whereas this strategy I'm about to go over, the individual starts this strategy for themselves. So over the next few minutes, I will reveal how individuals that have been burned by the market, or perhaps you know somebody that was, how you can generate predictable double-digit tax-free income for life. Now, in my experience, there are many dangers associated with the market, and I've noticed that most people choose to ignore these dangers. As a trusted advisor, I work with people approaching retirement, and it's a difficult situation I see when someone who diligently paid into their retirement, such as a 401k or other types of accounts, their entire career. And when I sit down with them and we're looking over their financials, what they have available, their assets, and they come to the realization that they don't have enough to retire. It's a tough conversation to have when someone has a small amount to last the rest of their lives that will be taxed and go down when the market drops. And losing money is a big kick from reality. So if you or someone you know had their investment account chopped in half in 2008, you know what I'm talking about. And lastly, the market is completely unpredictable. You have no idea how much you will have in retirement. If you went to the company, to your investment advisor or the company that provides your 401k, and you asked them, what will my 401k be worth in 5 years from now? They couldn't tell you, let alone 25 or 30 years from now. So an idea I'm going to present to you now is to move your money into a revenue generating asset, just like a business would. But in this case, of course, once again, this is not for a business. This is for an individual looking to do this strategy for themselves. So with this strategy, you are converting your taxed future income, a taxable liability, if you will, such as a 401k, into a strategy that is growing and that you can access anytime you want tax-free. You are creating a family legacy starting with you, and it's safe and predictable. It's predictable to the point that at any given point in your life, you can find out exactly how much money, or a real good estimate of how much money you will have, how much it's growing, and how much it will be worth years ahead of time. But I would say the biggest benefit is growing your wealth with double-digit returns every year for the rest of your life. So the sources of money for this strategy can come from a savings account, money in an investment account, a 401k or IRA, which, by the way, the investment account and 401k is a great way for diversifying, right? At some point in our lives, you know, we say, look, we don't want to take as much risk anymore. We want to have a conservative portion and a risky portion for the higher growth. Well, look at this as being the safe and conservative route, but what I think you'll find is over time, this actually even outperforms the risky part. Or it can be from your regular salary and you contribute to the strategy every month. The way the strategy works is pretty straightforward. You contribute your money to the revenue generating strategy one time today, or for a total of 24 months. After that, no more money is required from you. And moving forward, your money, your piggy bank, grows year after year in safe assets with those double-digit returns. So allow me to share an example of a 41-year-old that did this strategy with $500,000. Now, this is a real example. Once again, just like before, you don't have to do this much. You can do more, you can do less, depending on your financial situation. So this is somebody that had a 401k worth, it was actually over $500,000, but that's what she wanted to put into this strategy. And even though I'm using the specific example of a 41-year-old, this strategy works great for people in their 60s, 70s, or even 80s and feel like they have to make up for lost time. Or it looks even better for somebody that's younger in their 20s, because as the longer you have, the better this strategy looks. So I'm going to give a comparison of a 401k, which is what many people associate with creating income later in life. Now you'll notice over here, I have the annual return of a 401k of 6% after fees. Now, quite frankly, I'm taking a serious liberty here with this number because the actual numbers could be less. This is more of a best case scenario if the market continued to rise every single year, which we know doesn't happen. Whereas after this person formed their revenue generating asset, that $500,000 is growing around 14% after fees. So in 10 years from now, if the person left that $500,000 in their 401k, it would grow to 895,000. Whereas the revenue generating asset has grown by 1.1 million, a few $100,000 more than the 401k would have in that same amount of time. Now, it's also important to note that, let's say after 10 years, for example, if this person were to make a withdrawal from their 401k, it would be penalized and taxed. Whereas the money coming from here, from the revenue generating asset, is always 100% tax-free, regardless of when they take it out. After 20 years, the tax-free strategy is worth almost a full $1 million more than the 401k would have been. And lastly, after 35 years, the revenue generating asset is worth over $10 million more than the 401k would have been. Now, in my experience, when I meet with people approaching retirement or recently retired, people's 401k isn't worth anything close to this, even if they max it out, right? There's a certain amount you can put in per year. On the other hand, the tax-free strategy is showing conservative numbers based on our look back where we take into consideration all aspects of the market since the Great Depression to predict the future growth. But let me show you some realistic income, right? It's one thing to see, oh, how much it's growing, but how much does it actually provide you income when it's time to take it? And this is what every retirement or investment strategy strives to do, provide you income to last the rest of your life. So assuming this person wants to retire at age 65, the 401k would generate about $115,000 in income the first year. And the way that I got this is following what's called the 3% rule. Now, this is what financial advisors say that you can safely withdraw per year and never run out of money. A few years ago, it used to be the 5% rule. And then it changed to the 4% rule. And right now it's 3% rule, but even some financial advisors are recommending the 2% rule. And in addition is you would be paying taxes on this $115,000. Now, honestly, $115,000 per year isn't bad at all, right? This is a decent amount every year. But on the other hand, the revenue generating asset is providing $872,000 of tax-free income in the first year alone. Now, the income continues every year in both strategies. And at age 85, the income that you would take from a 401k this year alone is $207,000 per year, which is assuming that the person takes out 3% more per year to keep pace with inflation. Whereas the income from the revenue generating asset has grown to $1.2 million in income, which once again, over here, this 200,000 is taxed and this 1.2 million is tax-free. So assuming this person retires at age 65 and passes away at age 85, the total amount of income taken from the 401k is 3.1 million. And that's pretty good. But keep in mind that it is taxed. On the other hand, the income taken from the tax-free strategy is over 20 million. Now the big question is, how much will your family receive, right? Because at the beginning of this, I said, hey, this is also great for generational planning. How much will your kids receive? How much will your family receive? Do you want to donate it? Do you want it to go back to your business? I'll direct your attention to this green box. So with a traditional 401k, assuming this is the amount of income that person took for their life between 65 and 85 years old, the amount left over is a little over 650,000. which, let's face it, it's not that much. And also, this is cutting it pretty close, don't you think? If this person had to live in an assisted living facility, or what happened if they lived longer than 85, right? If they're taking out 200,000 per year, what happens if they lived 5 years longer, or had a medical expense, or needed to live in an assisted living facility? That money would dry up fast. When recently retired people are asked, what is your number one worry in retirement? Time and time again, it's the same answer: running out of money. Please don't do that to yourself. I see it all too often where somebody thought they were doing the right thing and they come to the realization that they better hope that they don't live that long. I mean, it's sad to say, but that's the reality. Whereas with the tax-free strategy, the amount left over that would go to the family is $15.5 million. So the total benefit over this time, 65 to 85 years old, between the income taken and what transfers to the family, that original $500,000 in the 401k would create a total benefit of 3.8 million. On the other hand, the revenue generating asset has a total benefit of 36 million. Same amount of money, same amount of time, with wildly different outcomes. So as a quick recap, this strategy provides consistent, reliable, and most importantly, predictable tax-free income while alive, while transferring your wealth to your family. It's a way to earn double-digit returns for life in a safe and predictable environment. And that is all for the individual strategy. So before I wrap up with my time here, is there anything I can answer or clear up about this section? Okay, that's all I have for you today. Thank you for listening. I appreciate your attention. I have my phone number here on the screen to explore options based on your circumstances, whether you're an individual, whether you're a business owner, or you're a business consultant. I am positive that this can fit in nicely with your specific situation.